This is Not Worth Living, a podcast that features creatives interviewing themselves with a preset list of questions. Unlike other podcasts that feel like conversation between friends, this one aims to feel like eavesdropping on a psychiatrist's visit. Today's episode features...
My name is Joe Bielecki. I use the handle Noisemaker Joe on pretty much all of the social media platforms I'm on, and I'm on a few too many of them. You may know my voice from the podcast Writing the Rapids, the twice-monthly show where I talk to writers about writing, and very often those writers have been recommended to me by writers who have previously been on the show. That's the one. You probably less likely might know me from my novel Tired out through Alien Buddha Press. I think it's a good one, and I think you would agree with me if you read it. What makes you tick? Let me answer this question by saying that this is at least my third take of trying to do this show. I tend to record my podcast as live. I tell people this, I tell them that there won't be a lot of editing, and I tell them that if they say anything they don't want to say, that I will happily edit out anything they want me to edit out. Most of the time people are okay and don't need me to edit out anything, and the most I've ever had to edit out has been like somebody coming to somebody's door. And yeah, I'm on at least my third try of answering just this question and maybe the entire recording itself. So what makes me tick? You tell me. A more charitable answer is that I'm led by curiosity. I'm constantly trying to find something new to be obsessed with. If I don't feel like I'm constantly a little too interested in something, I feel like I'm a little lost intellectually. So the constant desire to be overwhelmed by information that I feel very lacking without is what makes me tick. Would you open an envelope with your death date? This question is not the question it appears to be. This question is, do you want to know when you will die? Do you believe in fate? And would you want to know yours? Now, I know the answer to the question, for me, is yes. I absolutely would. Maybe not at first, but I would. And I would read the date, and it would ruin the rest of my life. In fact, it would probably just be like 5 minutes from now, from whenever I were to open it. So what I would likely do, if we lived in a universe wherein this was possible, is I would give it to my wife, and I would say, burn it sometime and somewhere where I'm not around. And then I would spend the rest of my life periodically remembering that I had done this and looking around the house to see if she had disobeyed my request, knowing further forward than just in the back of my mind that she would have definitely destroyed it. The more interesting question is, would she have opened it and read it? And that, my friends, we cannot answer. What was the first time you remember creating something intentionally? It must have been kindergarten or maybe first grade. We were given packets of white paper with a story written on them, sort of picture book style, so one line of the story per page, and we were encouraged to illustrate. I think it was probably an exercise in reading comprehension, so maybe first grade. I was so enthralled by the process that I encouraged my family to do this as well. We made our own packets. I had my parents write the stories, or maybe I wrote my own stories, and then we illustrated all our stories and shared them around the kitchen table. I do remember that one I created was definitely not just Pokemon, but it was about a yellow mouse named Sparky who is maybe self-conscious about his sparks, or is just trying to make a friend, or something particularly childish like that. I say childish affectionately. What keeps you motivated? What keeps me motivated is that I have too many ideas, and so if I stop working, the ideas start to build. They start to build like my pile of unread books, and soon my brain is cluttered with ideas that are begging to be put into writing, made into podcasts, made into videos, and such. Writer's block has never been a problem for me. The inverse is true. I sometimes will talk to people on my podcast, Writing the Rapids, which you should listen to, who will work on one project at a time, and I have a really hard time doing that because novels are long and take quite a while to write, and I'll be 10,000 words into a novel and I'll get the idea for another one. And that one, because it's the new one and is more related to whatever movie I've watched or album I've listened to or person I've interviewed or so on and so on, will be more exciting. And so I very well could start on that one. So what you'll find if you ever somehow get access to my Google Drive is that all of the completed drafts of novels almost entirely have come from NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, because the arbitrary challenge that is set forth by the month-long event of putting a 50,000 word draft out into the world, or at least out of your head and onto digital paper, is enough to get me to buckle down and do it. Other completed drafts are much more experimental, ambient, poetic affairs of maybe 10,000 words that have been stretched out over 100 pages or something like that. And I like both of those approaches just as well. But yeah, if I'm not writing, I'm stressing out about how many ideas I have. What inspires you at the moment? I'm doing this weird new thing for me where I've been making friends, and I've found that to be quite inspiring because I'm interacting daily with people who have similar values but different world experiences. They're not all my same age, they're not all my same gender, they have read different things than me, but we all kind of have similar ideas about literature and about life and how we would like the world to be, that sort of thing. And so I find that talking to them makes me want to write in general, and then it makes me want to write in ways that are new for me, and maybe not even in ways that are like how we're talking about. It's just there's a weird permission that I feel to branch out, talking to these people who I know are interested in my output because they're interested in my mind. And similarly, I'm interested in their output because I'm interested in their minds. And it's really weird. It's been years and years and years since I've tried to have like active, consistent friendships with people. And I guess I kind of get it now. I get why people like to do that and like to have those. In addition to that, I've been listening to a lot of horror punk, psychobilly, gothabilly, death rock, goth rock, that sort of thing, and it's really just painting images in my head as I listen to it that I want to turn into more literature. What's your latest project? So my latest completed project is what I call a bummer hypertext poem cycle called Senshukt Moe Solitude. It's out on noisemakerjoe.itch.io, apparently, and it is a kind of swirling, abstract cycle of short poems that each one has 3 hyperlinks on it that lead to 3 different poems, which lead to 3 different poems, which lead to 3 different poems, and it cycles around. There's a beginning, but there's not really an end. You just kind of go until you're confident you've read as much as you want to, or the whole thing. I was born out of a fascination I've had for years with hypertext fiction and ARGs and various forms of ergodic literature. Beyond that, I'm working on trying to find a home for one of the aforementioned 10,000 word ambient experimental poetic novel type things called Maze. In discussions with some of my friends about that, about where I might submit that, how I might self-publish it, what I maybe should change to it, that sort of thing. I'm also slowly editing an eco-horror novel called Compost, which was last year's NaNoWriMo project, which I'm quite proud of, quite happy about, and will be just self-publishing when I'm sufficiently satisfied with the doneness of it. If money was no object, what would be your dream project? Communism. Yeah, some sort of anarcho-syndicate, Ursula K. Le Guin styled anarcho something or other. The more serious answer, and the answer I think maybe more in line with what this question is asking in this context, is I would like to buy a large-ish building in or near downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. I would like to put a cafe in it, a library, a used and indie bookstore, maybe rare books too. And I would like to have 1 or 2 performance spaces, reading rooms, event spaces, perhaps apartments for cheap for artists, and create one of these mythical third spaces where weirdos like myself, and perhaps weirder and therefore cooler, can go and be safe and have fun and meet people and grow and learn and build the communities that are better than what I can imagine with my feeble little brain. I would love to have a sort of campus in a city this size that is safe and fun and good. Is there a quote or a motto that you work by? There is a motto that I work by, and I think the fact that this is maybe my 7th or 8th time trying to explain it maybe solidifies just how important it is for me, because I so desperately don't want to be misunderstood. So I will try to give a shorter answer this time than in the now deleted attempts, and I suppose if people would like to talk more about them with me, I have already stated where you can find me on the internet earlier. So in general, I think that when talking about art, it is better to enjoy art than to not enjoy it. It is better to like something than to not like something. I think that it is much easier to dismiss than it is to engage, and so I think it is a more difficult skill to work to enjoy something than it is to just notice that something is bad or problematic or poorly constructed or overrated or not worth your time, or the other myriad ways that people will justify not thinking about something. I think if there's something that is uninteresting to you that you don't want to think about, you should simply not think about it rather than try to explain for yourself or for social media why they shouldn't either. I think that trying to figure out why somebody could love a piece of art has the potential to enrich your life so much more thoroughly than simply saying, I don't like that. I think it requires you to open yourself up to the potential to learn a lot, to learn about the time something was created, to learn about the person or people who created it, to learn about the techniques used, to learn about the reason it was created, to learn about contemporaries, to learn about contemporaries in opposition, to learn about what it inspired and what it was inspired by. There was a teacher I had in high school, a band teacher, who said that the only reason you don't like a style of music is because you don't know enough about it. And he then went on to say ignorant things about hip-hop and metal being violent, and I don't understand why people like violence and art, which, you can make your world as big or as small as you want. I think that constantly making my world bigger is good. I think that working to understand and appreciate and enjoy all different types of art across medium, across time, across political ideology is enriching and makes you more empathetic and more intelligent. And I think that enjoying things is more fun than not enjoying things. I think sitting through a 90-minute movie and saying, here's what I liked about it, sets you up for more fun throughout the day than sitting down through a 90-minute movie and saying, wow, that was bad. I can't imagine why anybody would like that. And it kind of spirals out into how I move about the world, or I try to move through the world in a constructive rather than destructive way. I try to move toward things that I like rather than move away from things I dislike. I understand that there's always going to be systems and places and situations and people that I have to be near, that I wouldn't want to be near. And so by focusing on creating spaces and time and space and relationships with people that are positive, I can at least give myself solace in this weird world in which we live. And I think that if you kind of use this as a mind experiment and think about well, if I had focused all my time and energy at tearing down what I dislike, when I succeed, what do I have? And what you have there is a lack. You have the lack of the thing you don't like. You don't necessarily have anything better. You just don't have the thing you dislike. Whereas if you move trying to build something good for yourself and for those who you care about, if and when you succeed, maybe the bad stuff is still there, but you have something good. And I think that the more good things we build, the less space there will be for the bad things. Would you be friends with yourself? Oh boy. I mean, have you been listening to this episode up to this point? I mean, if you just skipped and happened to land on this question, you need to go through the preceding 20 minutes or however, because I think you know the answer to that question. What do you do differently from other people? In the notes for this podcast, it says you can skip questions if you want, but I kind of don't want to, even though I feel like there's no way for me to answer this that I will not regret. So I'm gonna use this as a test for myself. I'm gonna use this as a little challenge. What do I do differently from other people? How do I do that without putting me up against other people? I don't know. What are other people doing? Getting published. So that's a thing. Other people are getting published more. I feel like the big motto monologue I did, I think, is largely a unique way of moving through the world, at least if my time on Twitter has taught me anything. I think that it feels like a lot of the writers I interact with have sort of chosen a class in a sort of role-playing game sort of way. I feel like people say, I'm a horror writer, I'm a poet, I write experimental writing, I do transgressive writing, I write fantasy, I write science fiction, I write romance, I write young adult, I do this, I do that. And the more I write, the more I find I'm unable to do that. And I'll caveat that by saying that this is not a value judgment. In fact, I feel rather jealous of people who kind of know what they're doing, at least stylistically or with their voice. I'm constantly waffling. I'm constantly trying new things. And by new things, I mean 1 year I'll write something very transgressive and very gory and very upsetting. And then another year I'll write something very quiet and tender and small. And then I'll write a neo-noir cyberpunk crime thriller. Yeah, I guess it kind of comes to that, I have so many ideas thing, is that they don't come to me as like iterations on a theme. And I think maybe this is also one of the downsides of that, like, enjoy as much art as you can thing, where, like, I have this problem where every time I listen to a new style of music, I want to run to my computer, open up FL Studio, and try to make that genre of music. And every time I read a new book that presents me with something that I hadn't considered before, I want to run to my computer and open up Google Docs and start writing a book like that. I don't know if this is all that different from how other people do it, but it does feel like it is. It does feel like I'm the only person, I don't want to say floundering because it's not so helpless, but I don't know, I'm just multi-classing. I got one level in every class, man. I'm not min-maxing my art build. I'm not min-maxing my life build. I'm just out here with 60 different alts, just trying to see every open area, which is the only way I know how to do it. What would your epitaph say? Or what would you like your epitaph to say? What would I like it to say? I don't know. Sometimes I think wistfully that I should have my epitaph say something like, he was better than he thought he was, as like a final act of kindness to myself. But there's also no evidence that I'll ever die. I've never done it before. So of all of the days that I've lived, I've died in none of them. So I may not. Statistically, if the trend continues, I might not have to truly answer this question. I guess if I die before you, dear listener, you can come to wherever my soul ends up and let me know what it says.